Hello, my name is Caitlin Bennett. I am going to be talking about my final draft for the assignment in 4204 regarding our repository for our major written assignment for the class. I titled my paper as The Management of Mass School Shootings by Government Agencies. I began by going over how local law enforcement agents are directly involved and usually the first people to be on scene of school shootings. However, sometimes they are not of much help in the grand scheme of things. Along with this, there are a couple of issues regarding maintenance and mechanical problems within the school. And lastly, how there are some symbols that the shooters go over, whether it be on media or in person, that should be dealt with prior to. I actually went over that at the beginning of my main body paragraph, where I discussed the Parkland school shooter, Nicholas Cruz. There were a lot of warning signs that were posted online, social media of dead animals, threats to the school directly. People reported him to the police. Had a history of assault. Was I believe the police were called 18 times to his house before all of these things happened with the school, or at least the actual shooting itself. And nothing was, frankly, done about it, or at least nothing that could have stopped him from harnessing the weapons and going onto school property and murdering those children. Between the years of 2000 and 2021, 183 people, more like students and faculty, were killed, and 250 people were wounded from active shooters in American schools, which might not sound like a lot compared to the grand scheme of things and how many shootings actually are occurring at schools, but it is substantial. Different government agencies have been working on developing new means to tackle this problem and develop solutions for it prior to the events actually occurring. And that's something I get into with what can be done to correct these issues. Um, Although there are changes happening now, there is still a strong need for change. The biggest change that needs to be implemented is proper training. In the Uvalde school shooting of 2022 in Texas, that was committed at Robb Elementary, 17 people were injured, along with 19 children and two adults who were killed by an armed gunman on the property. He had an AR 15 that he fired for about almost 5 minutes outside of the school before entering through an unlocked door, which is an interesting thing to identify since the district's the district's active shooter plan stated that the doors were to be locked at all times of instruction, and they were frequently checked by the Uvalde Police Department. Though he was able to get in, it was unlocked. There wasn't a problem for him. The man, the shooter, was inside of the school, alive for a total of an hour and 18 minutes before he was shot and killed by border police units. However, for a large duration of the shooting, police officers of the Uvalde Police Department were present, which I'll go over in a minute here. According to the investigative committee report submitted by the Texas House of Representatives, Chief Arredondo, chief of Uvalde Police Department, along with other responders to the Robb Elementary shooting, took part in training through the ALERT program. What's interesting about this program is that it emphasizes the importance of learning from past mistakes, specifically dating back to the Columbine tragedy, which I mentioned earlier. Two of these learned experiences are the necessity to immediately make entry and neutralize an active shooter threat, as well as apply the priority of life scale. Now, the priority of life scale states that it is the job of law enforcement engaged on scene to put the lives of civilians above their own, regardless of consequences. And even though we still do value the lives of law enforcement officers and want them to be as safe as possible. So, on top of immediately working on the goal of identifying, engaging, and neutralizing the threat, it's a responsibility of law enforcement or any responding public safety official to risk their lives to save those of civilians. In the Uvalde tragedy, this, however, is not the case. On the day of the shooting, Uvalde officers seemed to be in disarray at the prospect of the shooter's whereabouts, and they were unfortunately largely misinformed throughout it. From the 2022 report by the investigative committee mentioned earlier, responding officers believed the gunman to be cornered and not an immediate threat to students or faculty after he was already in classrooms 111 and 112. This is also where he murdered his victims. Police officers did not assume there were victims inside or children without even looking properly and noticing this. When the officers tried to engage the classrooms, they were attacked by bullets and they backed off. And over the span of the next 40 minutes, the Chief Arredondo, seemed to be buying time by searching for a set of master keys to get in, again, over the span of 40 minutes, which just ended up wasting a lot of time. He was recorded as cursing at his inferiors and telling everybody to wait while he was not engaging the immediate threat as he should have been per protocol. Law enforcement and SWAT were unable to do anything. It was Border Patrol that ended up taking the gunman down. And there wasn't any substantial reasoning or evidence as to why the chief bought so much time, and on top of the key incident, tried every single key he could when he could have gotten in through other necessary means. It's my opinion that law enforcement officers should undergo extensive psychological tests to ensure that they are prepared for this kind of situation, especially because they were in charge of guarding Uvalde schools, elementary, high school. And it seems like they did not take their job to the level of seriousness that they needed to. Along with the law enforcement issues, the school doors were not latching properly. According to the investigative report, the locks on room 112 were not even working properly, though they had been disclosed to the school as not working properly on numerous occasions. The teacher herself had done that many times, and nobody really noticed. Even students knew that the door was malfunctioning as they used the printer in the school many times. But it did not seem like that was taken into effect, and it led to the deaths of many innocent lives of children and adults. So on top of all of this, the rate of which school shootings are occurring in the United States is increasing exponentially every year, besides 2020 when the pandemic first started and really took hold of the world. But even in 2021, everything just skyrocketed again. It's a huge turning point for our country to recognize how serious these things are, and we need to put a stop to it as soon as possible. Thank you.